And welcome to Coding Wizards. My name is Akash Sharma. I have 7 years of experience in Android and Flutter development. So let's start with the Dart. We will continue our previous lecture. I forget to tell you about the private variables. So in Java we have public, private variables. Way of defining them, we have scope modifiers like private, public, default and protected. In the Dart we can define only two things. All the variables are public by default. If we want to make some variable private, there is no such thing like protected or default. Everything is public. If we want to make like this in this class, want to make this one private, then we can add a underscore in front as a prefix in variable name in itself. So it will become a private variable. Like if we create a final user data is equal to user data and it has a name, let's add a Groot and age is 4. So and if you want to access the name, it won't allow it because in this file it will allow because this can be accessed in the library. So what it means, private variables are private to the library. Like this file, in this file we can access it, but if we do this thing in this file, let's say we have defined it here, we need to import it and it will say that getter for isn't defined for the type user data. So it is private to the library. So in this class this can be accessed in this class, and anything which is mentioned as a part of this library. So in the Dart library contains two things. This file, if every file is a library in itself, plus all the things defined as a part of declaration. So let's say we have added part and import the main.dart. So of this file, this is saying part of not included. Wait, let me complete it. Part of concepts.dart, like this. So it is saying that main is also there, so it won't allow it. There must be the only directory in the part. Okay, so in this we have only one, we don't need this one, so it is now fine. So if we import something, it will import in this file like this. So this is main library, this is only the part of this library. Now if we access this variable in this file, let's say in the build method, so it is fine. So let's import all other things also, so that whenever we create a part of a library, that files cannot contain any other imports. All the imports will be imported in the main library file. Like this is a main library file. Even if we are not using the material widgets inside this file, but it has added an import because these are the things that are being used in this part file. So this is the concept of library in the Dart. So a single library contains its own file and all the things which are mentioned as a part, all the files. So it has provided that we have added a part of declaration in the part file. So this is how a library is defined. and this is how the scope is managed inside the Dart. So this is a private to library, and library is what, this file, and whatever is being mentioned as a part, we can add multiple files as a part of this file. So all the part file cannot contain any other import except the part of declaration. So this is the library. So let's remove it for now, so that we can have the main. Let's import material, and we don't need this one. Now we can add its main method, void main, then we have run app my app, like this. So this is how private variables are defined. If we want to access this otherwise, so we have a getter, like we have getter like this. So this is a public method. So this is a kind of function, getter. So for this we have this. Now if we now add this one, then we can access the name like this. So we have defined a custom getter for accessing the private property. This is valid case whenever we want to expose the private variables to other files, to other libraries. So each file in itself is a library, and all these things are library. Whenever we import something, we are actually importing the library. So material dart is a library. So this is a library material. So this is not a recommended way to define the library name. So it was previously valid case, but now like in Dart 3, defining the library name is not recommended at all. So all the exports are defined in the file. These are the things that can be imported. So this is how a library is defined, and this is how a private properties are accessed in other libraries, like outside the scope of the library. Actually, previous class I thought it was only 15 or 20 minutes has passed, but it was 50 minutes. Sorry for that. And also I forgot to mention about the private variables. So we have like covered it now. So we have also covered the getter. Let's see the setter also. Sorry, there is no type for it. Set name, value, and name. So this is a setter, and it accepts a value and assigns a value to this private variable from the outside. Like we cannot access the name directly, so once we initialize it, there is no way of changing the value if we don't have the setter. So we can define the setter also, but this is not recommended way until we calculate some value. So if property is simple and available for public use and meant for public use, then it shouldn't have any getter setter, just return the property directly. So like this. Let's say here also we have like have some field integer and some value years old like this, and we want to calculate its value. Instead of like we have age, we can calculate based on this number, then we can pass it like years old plus 1, like whatever value is being passed in the age, we can apply some operation or any parameter, apply some operation assigned to this. So this is a super call, like this is a like constructor body, and if we have this one also, so it is also valid. So now we don't need this one, because whenever we have empty body we can short this to this one. Even if we are not calling any constructor, then we can like do this like this. So this has a extra variable, so it is saying that you must initialize it, because it is not nullable. If we make it nullable, then it won't be a problem. So this is the way we calculate some value out of this, and let's say we can do this here also. But see, it is not like accepting it, that it must be initialized, but we are initializing in the constructor, or like, so what is happening here? So whenever we have some things, some parameters not nullable, they either they must be initialized here or call the super here, like this, because here whenever we access this one, initializer gets called, and if doesn't have initializer, then it will throw an exception. So in this body, if we are accessing this, even like this, the initializer will be called for the initial value, but it doesn't have any initializer yet, so we can assign it here. So in the class constructor, the values can be assigned like this, and we have also the named constructor. Let's say we make these two things optional. So let's remove this one, lesser the better. So we have made this one nullable, and we can, let's remove this one also, it is redundant anyway. Age is also years old. So let's say we don't want to pass both these values. Instead, like if we create the object of this, it will be like final user data. Always we use final whenever you don't want to assign it again, like don't have anything to assign, make it final. Like it will be used only once, so make it final, so that it uses some lesser memory in terms of like holding the data. So like this is the first way. Then we can pass a null value here also, user data 2, and if we make it like user data 3 and remove the null value, so it is saying you must pass a value, because there are two variables. But passing null don't make any sense in this case, because either we will assign it like null, then it is valid. Sorry, make it optional to enclose it in the curly braces, so it is the valid case. Here we have to use the named parameters. For whatever value is being written inside the curly braces, it is accessed using the named parameter. So we can make all the named parameters or any one or two, whatever. So we don't actually assign the nullable variable default value null, because whenever we are making it optional, named parameter inside wrapping it in the curly braces. So if we want to define some default value, we can do this, and if we define default value to this, it won't allow it, because it is not a named parameter or optional. To make it optional, we need to wrap inside a curly braces. So now if we don't pass it, it is fine, because we have made it nullable, also optional. And another way to create it, like user data dot what name we can add, let's say named. Okay, make it like this dot name, and it is fine. we can also pass if we don't have this one, like make it not non-optional like this, then it is fine because the value will be null. So instead of this we can use named constructor. So this is another way to create objects. So this is the default constructor, this is a named constructor. We can define multiple, but name should be unique. So named age like this, but age name is not nullable, so we must pass it, otherwise it will show an error. So this is how constructors can be defined, getters, setters. Then another thing is we have seen how functions are defined, we have seen getter, setters, we have seen the return from a function and the parameter also. Let's say it doesn't return anything, let's say like this, so we don't need to return anything. Let's say it returns a nullable integer, so let's say like this. So if we don't return anything, it is fine, it won't complain, because if we are not returning anything, then we don't it won't complain until the return type is nullable. But it will show a warning that if you missed returning something, then should return. So for that purpose it has some warning. So we can also make the return type nullable. So then we have the classes, enums and mixins, abstract classes and mixin classes. So let's see an example of passing a function inside another function. Let's say this is a function and we can pass another function and has two parameters and a name, callback like this. We can also add a return type void, and we don't want to return from here, or just return like this, integer b. So now we have a function with two parameters and a function as a parameter. Okay, so how to use this? So we want to return the sum, simple. So whatever is being like do some network call, something like that, and we get the response in the future. So we cannot return the calculated value. Either we return the future, use async await, we will talk about it. Either we can pass a callback function and we can simply perform some operation and calculate the result and call this function. Like a function can be called in two ways, like this and dot call, like this, because all the functions are object and call is a class function. So like this function can be called like this also and like this also. Let's say we have a nullable function that can be null. So when we call like this, it will show an error. So instead of that, we can make it null safe call by adding a question mark. Then whenever if value is not null, then only this will be executed. And how to use this function add? Here let's say we have add and two numbers 2 and 5, and here we will get a sum and a function body like this, and we print it sum like this. So we passed an anonymous function inside a function, and whatever values being like parameters are being passed, they will be returned in this. So we are, when we call this, we are adding both the numbers and passing as a parameter. So here we have called it, here we have defined the function. So whatever sum is being returned, we will get here the callback. So we can use it in any way. So we can print it, we can, so in the widget we will talk about it, how we can render it in the widget, because here in the controller we don't have set state method. So how we are gonna reflect it on the widget side. So instead of this also we can do one more thing. Let's say we have defined some function is equal to, Kotlin syntax, where is equal to like this, some func. So this type and whatever is returned from them in the this function is same. So we can pass directly this function. So whatever the callback will be, it will be triggered, it will trigger this function. So we have created a local function. In the Dart we can also create local functions, we can create global functions, we can create member functions also. Inside a class, when we define a function, it is called member function. When we define a function outside any class, it is a top level function or global function. When we define a function inside another function, it is a local function. So like this, we have defined a function and returned in this. And instead of defining the body, we can also use the shorthand syntax like arrow functions. So this is it. Or if we are, whenever there is like standard best practice that if function this one, and where we are using it, if it is a single line, we can pass it simply here, it is also valid. So this is how Dart has been optimized the shortest possible way, except they don't have lambda function in in the Kotlin. We have to write it like, if you want to make it like some variable, and we have to write this like this. In Kotlin, we, instead of this, when we pass a function, we can add like this, and it will be here, the it variable will be default variable will be it, we don't need to write it, it to it. So we can simply call the function, call the parameter it and print it, like print it. It is valid for the Kotlin. So this is called a trailing lambda function. If function accepts another function as a parameter and it is the last function, we can add it outside the braces. So that is the syntax for the Kotlin. So that looks more cleaner to read, like more readable. But in the Dart we have JavaScript like functions called. Either we use the arrow functions for the single line, or we can define a body like this. So this is how we pass a function inside a function. I use it mostly for the UI callback, network callback. Whenever we get the data, we will talk about it. So there is extension function. So many time in interviews, extension functions are asked very frequently. In every, like I took a lot of interviews, I always ask about the extension functions. What are these? How you can use them? So let's create a extension function. Extension string extension on string. So this is a kind of defining the declaration. Then inside this, whatever function we will define, this keyword will return the calling parameter. Like here we have some string like camel and want to call on this function dot capitalize like this. So this thing will be passed as this, like when we call this it will refer to this value, and then we are calling uppercase, then calling substring, whatever is being done. So this is the extension function. We can normally, like we use toString, but toString we haven't defined it. It is defined in the object class. So it is external. It is defined in elsewhere. So we can define our own extension functions. So they are shortest possible way to call a function and get a value out of it, or perform some option, like we call on print like this, but there is no print function. We want this kind of function, so we can make our own. So void print, then whatever value is there we simply print it, this. Like this. But oh sorry, we are calling this function inside this. So we, if we want to system debug print like this. And there is another way to access the library thing, like we can add as here, like named as material, then we want to call print function from the that library material dot print. Is there any? I think material is not defined in that, so it is defined in, like print is defined in the core. So we can add core, and we are referring core dot print. So we can remove this one, use imported dot core with prefix core. Okay, so everything inside the core is like all the data type are defined inside that. So this is how we can call the same name variable from the same name function from the another library, adding a suffix like this kind of whatever is it is called. So let's go back to original code. So instead of that we can use debug print, there is no problem with that. In the debug code always use, like in the code always use debug print, because whenever you miss this to be, like whenever you miss it, you forget it to remove, it will be called every time the line gets executed in the production app or release app if you use print thing. If you use debug thing, it won't get executed in the release file, like release APK. So this is how you can make your own method on the existing, like it is like we have created on the string, we can create on the user data custom models also. So we have user data, we want name to be capitalized, like we want to get a capitalized name. So we created a function like capitalized name, and we have this dot name dot to uppercase. Simple. Writing this again, like we can remove this one, it is like inferred by default like this. We can remove this one also, and let's use this. So we have created a user data, and user data, like we have given some name Hulk or age 70, and we want to print user data dot capitalized name. So this is the way we can use it. Another way, like if we don't have extension functions, we can do same thing with this, like string simple. We can create a getter also, get capitalized name, get capitalized name, like this. So here we can remove this one and it will work. So we can call the getter. But if there is some file from the third party library, like in material, string, or any other SDK you are using, and this file access you don't have, like wherever the class has been defined, you don't have access to that code, like write access, you cannot modify that. On those cases, you can define the extension functions in your own like files and use them anywhere in the code. It must be top level, it must not be inside any function or inside any class. So this declaration must be, and you can add inside this multiple functions, like the name must be unique, but you can define any number of functions inside this on this data class. Similarly, we can use the date time, we can define some functions on the string, like there is no, like this is a string, and if we call on is not null or empty function that Kotlin has, it doesn't have. So you can create your own function with the extension function help. So normal functions we call like this, we call the function name, write the function name, then we add the parentheses, the braces, then we pass it as an argument. And for calling the extension function, we can just call that to capitalize name, kind of like whatever function we have defined. So this is how it is created. So this is for the functions, private property, library, and I think class is already 30 minutes or up, I don't have idea. So we will continue in next lecture, classes, enums, and all these things mixing abstract class. Then we have Dart inheritance, then we have polymorphism, how we can abstract, hide the code. I will also show you how we don't have actual implementation of widget, like it is abstract, we don't have how widgets are being rendered because they are private, their implementation is hidden. So we cannot see the actual logic, how widgets are being rendered on the screen. So that those kind of thing, you can also hide your own code, like you can create abstract class, expose it to the public, make its implementation private. We will see all these things. So these are the things we are going to cover in next few classes. After this we will start with the Flutter widgets and everything. We will start with the widgets, then we will see the how rows, column, box, stack, different type of other widgets like container, aspect ratio. There are a lot of widgets. So all these widgets, after we will work with the stateless and stateful. Mostly we will work with the stateless because there is no point of using statefuls, because we will ultimately we are going to use a state management solution. Without that, the production apps are cannot be built, like can be built, but they are very like difficult, like the code will become very complex by using change notifier, value notifier only. We cannot rely on that. And if we call the set method, each time a button is pressed or any data is refreshed, the whole screen will be refreshed. So instead of that, we will use stateless widgets with a state management solution like getX, liverpod, block, or anything. So we will see how we can make our code better readable, optimized, performance centric. So stay tuned. After completing these things, we will move to the Flutter. Mostly 3-4 videos more on the Dart, then we'll go to the Flutter. Okay, stay tuned. Thanks for watching.